What's going on, everybody? Khalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be comparing the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G to the Samsung Galaxy A72. Now, as the names suggest, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is technically the successor to the Samsung Galaxy A72, but there are definitely quite a few differences here. So I'm going to be going over all of those as well as what these phones have in common to help you decide which one is a better choice for you. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, be sure to check out my full reviews of them on the channel. But with that being said, let's get started. So with the Samsung Galaxy A73, we're getting a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED Plus display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 282, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. With the Samsung Galaxy A72, we're getting a 6.7-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 394, and an aspect ratio of 20:9 as well. So I would say in general, these displays are real similar. The display technology is slightly different, with the A73 5G having a Super AMOLED Plus display and the A72 just having a regular Super AMOLED display. But in general, I do think that despite the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G being a little bit higher quality, they are pretty much the same. Both of these phones do have really large displays at 6.7 inches, and that's going to be great for content consumption. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're watching videos, playing games, browsing the web, all that kind of stuff, these displays being so large are going to be great for that kind of thing. And with aspect ratios of 20:9, we're getting taller and more narrow form factors. So if you're doing something in landscape mode, like streaming a video, for example, you're going to get a much more immersive experience. And if you're doing something like reading or scrolling through social media, you'll be able to fit more content on the screen without having to scroll as much. So overall, as far as the size and dimensions go, these phones are essentially exactly the same. Now, the Samsung Galaxy A72 might look a little bit larger than the A73 5G, but that's really just because the bezels are slightly thicker. Again, both of them do have 6.7-inch displays, so while with the Samsung Galaxy A72, the physical device is technically larger than the A73 5G, again, the displays do have the exact same size and dimensions. Now, as far as the quality goes, I do think both of them look really good. With 1080p resolutions, we're going to get nice, sharp, crisp images with both of them, and this is going to give you a real good experience when you're consuming content. And as far as quality is concerned, there are really only two differences here. First of all, like I said before, the display technology. With the A73 5G, we are getting a Super AMOLED Plus display, whereas with the A72, we're just getting a regular Super AMOLED. Now, is it going to make a huge difference? Probably not really, but at the same time, the Super AMOLED Plus is technically the better display technology, so in that regard, the A73 5G does have an advantage. But that being said, for both of these phones with AMOLED type displays, you're going to get real good brightness, the colors look nice and vibrant, and the viewing angles are going to be great as well. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, you'll still be able to see these phones really easily. Now, another difference here is that with the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we're getting a 120Hz refresh rate, and with the Samsung Galaxy A72, we're only getting a 90Hz refresh rate. Now, I guess I shouldn't say only 90Hz here, because still, compared to your average phone that has a 60Hz refresh rate, 90Hz is still definitely really good, and this is going to make the movement on the screen faster and smoother, which is going to be great for stuff like watching videos and playing games. And also for both of these phones, when you're navigating through the devices, they're going to feel a little bit more premium. But that being said, 120Hz is still higher than 90Hz, so you are going to get a slightly better experience with the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G. But that being said, I feel like just like with the display technology, both of these displays are great, and a 90Hz refresh rate is still really good, so you're really probably not going to notice the difference that much. So in general, would I use the displays alone as a decision maker here? Probably not, because they're just too similar for it really to make a huge difference. But if having the best possible display is really important to you, still keep in mind that in every way where there is a difference, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G does have an advantage. Both of these phones are getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Now keep in mind, both of these also have other variants that have 256GB, so if you do want more storage than this, you can always go for those, but these specific phones in the video do have 128. Now for me personally, I feel like 128GB is plenty. In fact, my personal phone only has 128. I used to have an iPhone XS Max that had 256, but I never even used half of that storage, and I still don't even get close with 128, and I personally feel like I'm a bit of a power user. Now that being said, there are plenty of people out there who use their phones much more than me and have like 100GB of apps or something like that. And in that situation, of course, you're going to want more storage than these phones. But at the same time, for the average user, 128GB of internal storage, especially with microSD card expansion, should be perfectly fine. Now, there's no wireless charging with either of these phones, but both of them do have fingerprint scanners as well as face unlock, so we're getting some real nice security features here. For both of these phones, the fingerprint scanners are located right here in the displays, definitely a nice premium touch. So we're going to go ahead and give each of them a try and see how well they work. So starting with the A73 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So real fast and responsive here. Now moving on to the A72. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you could see, both of those fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. The Samsung Galaxy A73 5G might have been a tiny bit faster, but the difference was really not that noticeable. And remember, both phones also have face unlock, so it's nice that we get two options to get into them. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we got a nice looking hole punch design for the front facing camera, and this camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 108 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. With the A72, we got a hole punch for the front facing camera as well. This one is a little bit smaller than the A73 5G, kinda interesting, and this camera is 32 megapixels as well. Then on the back, we got another quad camera setup. It's kind of funny, the camera modules look pretty much exactly the same, but with the A72, we got a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So as far as features go, these phones have pretty much the same kind of stuff. The only real difference here is that with the A72, we do get a telephoto lens, whereas we don't with the A73 5G. But on the other hand, with the 108 megapixel main camera, the A73 5G does have a significantly more powerful camera than the A72, so it does kind of balance out a little. If you'd rather take higher quality normal photos, then the A73 5G will have an advantage. But if you want that extra zoom from the telephoto lens, then the A72 might be a better choice. Either way, both of these phones do take real high quality photos, and as far as video goes, both phones can record in 4K in both the rear and front cameras, unfortunately only at 30 frames per second, but at least they can record 4K videos, and really most people probably aren't going to need 60 frames per second anyway. Now as far as the RAM and processor go, with the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we're getting 8GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G 5G processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A72, we're getting 8GB of RAM as well, with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G processor. So there's definitely a huge difference here. First of all, as the name suggests, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is a 5G phone, so you're going to get access to your carrier's 5G network and of course the latest and greatest technology. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A72, unfortunately this is a 4G only phone, and while having a 4G phone is not the end of the world, honestly in this day and age when you're getting a new phone, I feel like it makes the most sense to get a 5G phone and really just future-proof things, because 5G after all is becoming more and more important, and the network just keeps improving, and while 4G is not going away anytime soon, I feel like if you're bothering to get a phone in 2022 at all, you might as well get one that has access to your carrier's best network. But then again, if you can get a real good deal on a 4G phone, especially one as good as the Samsung Galaxy A72, then it's still really not a bad choice. Now that being said, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and as you can see here, with the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, we're getting a single core score of 773 and a multi-core score of 2888. With the Samsung Galaxy A72, we're getting a single core score of 543 and a multi-core score of 1640. So quite the difference in processing power here, as you can see just from the score alone. The Samsung Galaxy A73 is a whole lot faster, so if you're doing higher end activities, like a bunch of mobile gaming for example, or if you're just on your phone a lot, then the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is going to be a much better choice. Now if you're just doing more basic activities like web browsing, social media, stuff like that, the A72 will handle it perfectly fine. But again, with the A73, while it's still not quite flagship level, you are going to see a significant difference in performance with this phone. Now that being said, I do recommend running this test on your current phone and comparing your results to these to see for yourself whether or not one of these phones, or maybe both, would be a performance upgrade for you, because depending on what you currently have, you might actually have something that's faster than both of these. But in general, as far as processing power goes, while neither of these phones are slow by any means, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G with 5G connectivity and a much more powerful processor does have a huge advantage here. For the battery, both of these phones have pretty much the exact same battery specs, with 5000 mAh batteries that support 25 watt fast charging. So with both of them, you're going to get a ton of battery life throughout the day and down the road for longevity as the batteries wear out, which all batteries do. You're not going to notice it nearly as quickly with these phones, since you're already starting out with with so much more battery life than you actually need just to get through the day. And then of course the fast charging never hurts either, with 25-watt fast charging. Although it's still not the fastest fast charging in the world, for mid-range phones it's definitely impressive. Now for the software, there's technically a bit of a difference here, but maybe not in the way you think. Both of these phones do currently have Android 12, but the thing is, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G started with Android 12, whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A72, it did start with Android 11. So since the Samsung Galaxy A72 is a year older, it's going to be supported for a year less than the A73 5G. But then again, keep in mind, Samsung Galaxy A series phones are going to be supported for 5 years. So of course, what that means with these phones is that you're going to get 5 years of updates out of the A73 5G and 4 more years with the A72. So if you want to get the latest updates for the longest amount of time, then of course the A73 5G will have an advantage here. But that being said, the Samsung Galaxy A72 with 4 more years of updates is still going to be supported a lot longer than your average mid-range phone. So either way, in terms of software and long-term updates, both of them are really good, but if you want the absolute best, then you're probably going to want the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G. Now both of these phones also have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments, then you'll be happy to know that that won't be a problem with either of these phones. But in conclusion, which of these devices is better? Now in pretty much every way where there's a difference, the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is clearly the better phone here. It has slightly better display technology and a higher refresh rate, a more powerful camera, it has 5G connectivity and a much more powerful processor, and since it is a year newer, it's going to support updates for a year longer. But that being said, this really doesn't mean the Samsung Galaxy A72 is a bad phone. In fact, quite the opposite. This phone still has a really good display that's going to be great for content consumption. It has a really good camera that has a telephoto lens, which is something the A73 5G doesn't have. And even though the processor is not nearly as fast and it doesn't have 5G connectivity, you still are going to get some pretty good performance here. So if you're doing stuff like social media, web browsing, and some light mobile gaming, then you're still going to get a real good experience here. It also has a really large battery, NFC, and even though the phone is a year old, it's still going to support quite a few major updates. So in general, although the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G is still a much better device, if you can get a good deal on the A72, I do think it will provide quite a bit of value for the money. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A72. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, be sure to check out my full reviews of them on the channel. But that's it for this video. As always, I will see you in the next one.